Imagine for a moment that we are all standing at the edge of a vast ocean, a boundless sea that stretches into the horizon, full of mystery, beauty, and power. Each of us is holding a different tool, a telescope, a microscope, a compass, a prayer book. We are all trying to understand the ocean, but we're looking at it from different angles with different instruments. Some of us are searching its surface, studying the waves. Others are diving into its depths. Some are charting its borders, while others are reflecting on the light dancing on the water. This ocean is our symbol for the ultimate question of existence. What is reality? What is truth? What is God? Today, I want to propose that the answer to these questions lies not in finding a single, definitive tool, but in recognizing the patterns that emerge when we bring our perspectives together. These patterns are not just in the physical world, but in our spiritual traditions and ethical frameworks. They reveal the essence of what we call God, not as an abstract or distant entity, but as the unifying principle, the logos, that we encounter through the consistent patterns present in all aspects of life. In this journey, we'll explore the convergence of science, philosophy, and spirituality. We will reflect on how focusing on these patterns allows us to develop a fuller conception of God, one that transcends the boundaries of any single discipline or tradition, but that speaks to the unity of all things. Let's begin with the fundamental ideas that will guide us. Let's start with the idea of the logos, a concept that has shaped both ancient philosophy and modern theology. The logos, in its simplest form, refers to the rational principle that governs the cosmos, the reason behind the universe's order, and the word through which all things were made. In Christianity, it is often associated with Christ, the embodiment of divine wisdom. But this idea transcends any one religion. In the context of our conversation, the logos is the pattern that underlies both the physical laws of nature and the moral laws of human behavior. What does it mean to say that God is the logos? It means that God is not something we can hold or grasp in a single thought or image. Instead, God is the rational structure that is woven into the very fabric of reality. We see this structure in the way the universe operates, through the laws of physics, the cycles of life, the balance of ecosystems, and we feel it in our ethical convictions and spiritual experiences. When we say God as the Logos, we are acknowledging that there is an objective order to the world, a pattern that is consistent, reliable, and universal. This is not an abstract deity disconnected from our lives, but the very logic of existence itself, the principle that makes the world intelligible, that makes our experiences meaningful, and that connects everything in a profound and mysterious way. This brings us to our next point: how these patterns serve as a bridge between two seemingly opposing views of reality. For centuries, scientists and philosophers have debated whether space and time are absolute entities, as Newton suggested, or purely relational, as Ernst Mach proposed. But perhaps this debate presents us with a false choice. Maybe, instead of focusing on whether space and time are absolute or relative, we should focus on the patterns that emerge within them. You see, everything we know about the world comes from our observations, our relative, limited, and often subjective perspectives. But within these perspectives, there are consistent patterns. The laws of physics, like gravity or electromagnetism, don't change depending on where or when we measure them. These patterns remain stable, even though our individual measurements are always relative. What does this mean for our understanding of God? It means that God is not some distant absolute beyond our reach, nor just a product of human relationships. God is the unifying pattern that exists within our observations and experiences, but also transcends them. The patterns we see in the universe, the laws that govern the cosmos, are reflections of the divine order. They are the ways in which the Logos reveals itself to us. In this sense, God is both immanent and transcendent, present within the fabric of reality, but also beyond any single point of view. This idea allows us to bridge the gap between the relative and the absolute, between the finite and the infinite. It opens the door to a fuller understanding of God, one that incorporates both the material and the spiritual dimensions of existence. Now, Let's take this idea of patterns a step further, into the realm of religion. If we accept that the universe is governed by stable relational patterns, then we can start to see how these patterns might also manifest in our spiritual experiences. Just as the physical laws of the universe are universal, so too are the ethical and moral patterns that emerge across different cultures and religious traditions. Think about the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This principle appears in almost every major religion: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism. Why? Because it reflects a universal moral pattern. It's a principle that holds true across cultures, just as the law of gravity holds true across space. So, when we say that all religions are paths to God, what we mean is that each religion offers a different expression of the same underlying patterns. These patterns are not just ethical principles, but also spiritual insights, ways of understanding the divine that emerge from different historical and cultural contexts. Each tradition has its own way of articulating these patterns, but they all point toward the same divine structure, the same logos. This leads us to a profound realization. God is not a distant deity, defined by any one religion or doctrine. Rather, God is the foundation of all consistent patterns, whether they manifest in the physical world or in our spiritual lives. When we study the patterns that govern the universe, whether through science, philosophy, or theology, we are, in a very real sense, studying God. Consider the laws of physics, the inverse square law that governs both gravity and electromagnetism, or the conservation laws of energy and momentum. These laws are not arbitrary. They reflect the consistent order of the universe. They show us that there is an underlying structure to everything, a structure that is reliable, predictable, and universal. In the same way, when we look at the spiritual teachings of the world's religions, we see a similar structure. We see consistent patterns of morality, compassion, and justice. These patterns are not confined to any one culture or time period. They are universal, just like the laws of physics. And just as we can use science to explore the physical patterns of the universe, we can use spirituality to explore the moral and ethical patterns that point us toward the divine. If we think of God as the logos, the divine pattern that underlies all of reality, then the question becomes, how do we access this pattern? How do we experience God in our everyday lives? The answer lies in recognizing the patterns that connect us to the world, to each other, and to the divine. Science gives us the tools to understand the patterns of the physical universe, while religion gives us the tools to understand the spiritual patterns that guide our lives. When we align ourselves with these patterns, when we live in harmony with the natural laws of the universe and the moral laws of our communities, we experience a deeper connection to the divine. This doesn't mean that we have to choose between science and religion, between reason and faith. In fact, the two are deeply intertwined. Just as the patterns of the universe reveal themselves through scientific inquiry, the patterns of the divine reveal themselves through spiritual practice. Both paths lead us to the same conclusion, that there is an underlying order to the universe, a structure that points us towards something greater than ourselves. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with a profound and beautiful understanding of God, not as a distant deity or a collection of abstract concepts, but as the universal pattern that connects all things. God is the logos, the rational structure that governs the universe, the moral compass that guides our actions, and the spiritual principle that unites us all. In this framework, science, philosophy, and religion are not competing paths to truth. They are complementary. Each offers us a different lens through which to see the same underlying patterns. Each helps us understand a different aspect of the divine. And so, as we continue to explore the mysteries of the cosmos, the complexities of human life, and the depths of our spiritual journeys, let us remember that the key to understanding lies not in choosing sides, but in finding the patterns that unite us all.